next panel is on balancing trust and accountability, how to access more unrestricted funding. Unrestricted funding is critical for building strong organizations, yet remains scarce for most not profits. The session shares insights from the first report in Change Engine's Ease of Doing Good series, the flexible funding gap in nonprofit unicorns, which will be presented by Shubham. This will be followed by a discussion on how trust is built in practice, what accountability looks like without rigid programmatic constraints, and what founders can do today to realistically access more multi year flexible funding. Over to you, Shubham.
Great. Uh, so, I wanted to share some quick insights from a study that we did very recently to situate the panel discussion that we're going to have. We keep talking about ease of doing business, but we thought, can we look at what is ease of doing good? And a critical component of that is funding, in addition to regulation and other aspects of it. So what we did was that we'll try to look at how big is the flexible funding gap, because that's where nonprofits seem to struggle the most. And the question that we posed to ourselves was, can we quantify that gap? Can we understand that gap better? And try to figure out what could be ways to unlock more innovation capital. We got about 145 plus responses from organizations across different stages. We had about 40% from small and medium, which were from 1 CR to 5 CR range, and about 20% organizations that were large. So these were more than 5 CR in annual budget. We had almost equal representation from organizations that were eligible for foreign funding. So these were ones that had an FCRA or that had a US 501c status to raise that capital. So why do we need flexible funding? We asked the question directly to the nonprofits, and 80% of that said that lack of flexible funding actually restricts them from scaling up. Um, and we asked them, a further question. Okay, what does that even mean? Where would they invest if they have if they have 25% more capital in flexible funding? Almost 75% said that they would invest in building team capacity, which meant hiring core team members, hiring fundraising team, program leads, uh, and other key positions. Could be a co-founder as well. 32% said they would invest in more pilots and innovation, and about 27% said they would invest in technology and M&E and building the data backbone to drive program expansion later on. What does that mean, right? So uh, there are some sample quotes from the survey. A lot of founders said, that our core teams have worked at very low salaries. We want to be able to attract better talent, pay better compensation for that. A lot of said that we want to move away from programmatic outcomes and also try out new innovative approaches that might actually lead to policy reforms, but we need capital to try them out at least. And the third one was, building live dashboards, tracking data better. This whole bundle, team capacity, innovation, technology, I think it's good. It's reasonable to qualify this as innovation funding. When startups raise money, they spend most of their capital on this, and in that way, flexible funding is actually innovation funding for nonprofits. The gap is huge. 80% of the organization said that less than 25% of their funding is unrestricted. More than half said that it's even less than 10%. And this was across small, medium, and large organizations. It's not as if that large organizations have larger pools of flexible funding available. The situation is even dire for organizations that don't have foreign sources of funding. So while 7 out of 10 organizations are able to raise multi-year unrestricted grants, only 4 are able to do from domestic sources. And if you look at meaningful check sizes, the situation is even much more dire. Only 2 out of 10 organizations are able to raise a check size of 50 lakhs plus in unrestricted multi-year grants. The most common check size that people reported was less than 10 lakhs. Uh, about a third of founders said that it takes them more than 12 months to raise a meaningful check, which means that almost like 50% or more of their time they're spending on fundraising and not doing the actual work that they want to do. Who is funding them? Uh, Obviously, HNIs were the most popular source for raising flexible grants, followed by crowdfunding. This could be a great insight for non-profit founders who are there in the room here. Uh, Definitely invest in crowdfunding. That could be a big pool of capital for you. Domestic foundations seem to be playing a much smaller role here, and CSR is the hardest to raise flexible funding from. And that's sad because CSR pool is almost 34,000 crores. And if that can be opened up and tapped into, that would be a huge unlock for the ecosystem. Here, what I try to do is look at institutional sources of funding. So these are either foreign foundations or domestic foundations. And we see that these institutional sources get unlocked only when organization crosses typically a 5 CR annual budget. So the point here is that very little early stage capital for nonprofits is available. Right? When we look at startups, we look at the amount of funding that goes into seed stage, Series A, Series B. It seems like the ladder is broken here, and we were having that discussion, I think, a few minutes back on this. What makes it hard to raise? A lot of founders say that CSR rules discourage unrestricted funding. While there's nothing in the act that says that, but there are norms that have come around it. Around 5% overheads or 10% overheads. Uh, but then there are also norms around giving utilization and not being able to use the funds in subsequent years. A lot of founders also said that there are information gaps. So while funders know how to measure progress for an NGO when it comes to programs, how do you measure progress when you're giving a flexible grant? So how do you sort of balance flexibility with accountability? And a lot of funders might not be aware of it. And there are a few other behavioral, mindset shift issues. So a lot of funders have an expectation that nonprofits should not pay well, or the pay should be very low. This actually constrains, right? So you cannot get the best talent to work in the sector if you're not even paying a reasonable compensation to them. In terms of solutioning, the most common ask from nonprofits was, making multi-year grants by as a default, uh, and only cancel a grant, if the organization is not delivering as it needs to, but make that a default from 1 year grants. Having dedicated unrestricted grants, even in CSR, was the second ask. And the other few asks were, can you share case studies? Can you help funders actually evaluate nonprofits and their work better? Based on this, and also, from the organizations that we have worked with through our accelerator program, uh, there are a few suggestions I would like to put forward, and hopefully hear more from the panel that comes forward. Uh, I think domestic foundations, if they can default to multi-year grants and dedicate a proportion of their funding to early stage funding, that can be a huge unlock. Like you can have more organizations trying out different approaches, and that builds a pipeline for late stage funding. We need HNIs to become angel philanthropists, just as they became angel funders, right? We have vast networks of angel funding in startups. Can we have angel giving networks? And make the check size default to be more than 15 lakhs so that it's worth the time of the founder. The third piece is for CSR. Can we carve out a certain proportion of CSR funding towards research, towards innovation, and 100% to make sure that that funding the full cost of delivery. I think when we were having the discussion, one of the founders said that uh, they have separate budgets for program and for overheads, but that those overheads don't usually account for all the M&E that will go into it, all the tech they will have to build into it. So the full cost needs to be borne out. And then a while back, we also tried to look at a bit on the regulation side. How can you unlock more funding for nonprofits? I think one of the biggest pain points is this 20% income cap that nonprofits can make. If they go beyond the 20%, if the business income of a nonprofit is more basis their annual budget, then they risk losing their ATG and 12A. That makes it impossible for nonprofits to have a revenue as a sustainable funding source. And then you have like all these crazy structures, hybrid structures that nonprofit founders have to navigate. And again, CSRs should become angel philanthropists, give out more innovation funding, and fund, full cost of delivery. And policymakers can actually make it easier. So there's a lot of confusion right now in the circles, whether this is allowed or not. So by issuing clarification around it, they can actually make this unlock possible. With that, I'll close my presentation and hope to look forward to more ideas from the panel that comes here. Thank you. Tanvi, Akshay, Muzammil, and Akansha, if I can call you on.
Thanks, Shubham. I'll now introduce all the panelists for the day. Akansha Gulati, she's the CEO of Act Grants, a platform catalyzing collective action among startups, nonprofits, and public private partners. She previously served as Chief Program Officer at Teach for India, leading strategy, program design, and alumni impact. She's an FC Austin Scholar at Kellogg MBA and a graduate of Duke University. Akshay Saxena, he's the co founder of Avanti Fellows and an Ashoka Fellow, working on scalable solutions to complex education challenges. His work has been recognized by the Schwab Foundation, Draper Richards Kaplan, and Ecoing Green, and he has experience across consulting, multilateral organizations, and technology startups. He holds a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from IIT Bombay. Muzammil Beg, he's the co founder of Project Deep, where he leads fundraising, government partnerships, and organizational development to strengthen and scale institutional capacity. He brings experience across the corporate sector at Godrej Properties and 7 years in education and learning initiatives across India and Africa. We have the moderator for the day, Tanvi Bichandani. She's the co-founder of Tamarind Chutney, a social enterprise working to improve artisan livelihoods while reducing textile waste. An alumna of Stanford University, she partners directly with small and medium-scale artisans to provide design support and shared value. Previously, she also worked at Central Square Foundation, where she managed a portfolio of early stage nonprofits. And then we have Shubham Bansal, who you just heard. He's the co founder of Change Engine, where he works to support founders building high impact nonprofits. An alumnus of IIT Delhi and EPFL, he previously co founded and led Leap Club, a Y Combinator backed startup connecting farmers, producers, groups directly with urban consumers, and he's also worked across clean tech startups in India and Europe. Over to you, Tanvi.
Can you all hear me? Great. Good evening, everyone. I would also like to reintroduce myself. I'm not here because I work and have started a clothing company. You all might be wondering why I'm the right person to be here. Along with that, I also manage my parents and Jeevan Sirvi Bikchandani's family philanthropy, and we support 30 organizations across various areas. And uh, I come here in the capacity of representing an HNI philanthropist. And we've already heard from Shubham the very interesting and somewhat perhaps surprising results from the survey. And the idea is to supplement that now with some real world experiences and insights from our panel, which consists of two founders and one funder. So we get to hear both sides around what works and what doesn't for accessing unrestricted funding. And I know there are lots of nonprofit founders or fundraising people in the room. So hopefully you'll come, like leave this session with some interesting insights and takeaways. So Akshay, I'm going to start with you. Avanti has been around for over a decade. I would say, and I did already earlier, that you are a master fundraiser. So give us the lay of the land. What percentage of Avanti's budget is unrestricted? What is your fundraising strategy? How has it evolved over Avanti's journey? And how much time do you spend on fundraising still?
Maybe I'll answer in reverse. I think I spend about half my time on fundraising. Most of it, I think, on new grant development, not on uh, repeat money for our existing programs. Um, we've been around now 15 years, so very long time. I do think the landscape has shifted quite dramatically. I would say between 2010 and 2015 was a very different world. I think 2016 onward, it's been a very different world, largely because of how mature CSR has gotten. Um, so I think from 2010 to 2015, we were saying we were having a separate conversation. I was saying that it was entirely a matter of whether you can get on the ladder of foreign funding, which was at some point in time get Echoing Green, If Mulago likes you, you get Mulago. Then if you can get Draper Richards Capital on top, you get that. Uh, in the process, you will find one or two other HNIs in the US who were Indian who would fund you. And I think to some degree this was true for us. I think 80% of our early money came from the US. And we didn't have FCRA. So we were actually literally paying salaries directly from the US to people in that period. Um, I think a lot of our early capital also came from crowdfunding, from running marathons, other events, our donors hosting events in small groups and talking to people. Many of those strategies still continue to work um, quite well for us, and it's only grown over time. So I would not discount the value of retail fundraising. Um, and I think just to give you overall, I think our budget is about, like this year will close at about 50 crore, right? Of that, um, I think about uh, 10% of it is truly unrestricted, comes from individuals, comes from folk who don't really will not ask us what we did with the money. Um, a majority of that still comes from the US, from the same things that it used to come from earlier, which is like to host small events, board members giving, um, people running marathons, our alumni doing fundraisers, like it's that kind of money. Um, and even within it, the majority of it is small checks. So like $400, $500, $1,000 checks, which is, I think for most nonprofits, the most important money you will raise. Like the consistent $500 a year check is the most powerful money you have as a charity. And I think it's really important. And one thing to say is very important to continue to have that, because if all hell breaks loose, we will have that money to which we store, which we put in corpus that we will use in the future. And as you get like aged as a nonprofit like us, that money adds up, right? So 10, 15 years of saving that money means that it's not minor. Um, the other big part of flexible funding we have is actually from our multi-year donors. So I think at our stage, given our programs are quite well defined, we tend to put in product costs, technology costs, not other than fundraising, even communication advocacy costs are all in our budget. And there is nothing stopping anyone, even if your budget is 20 lakh rupees, from putting that into your budget. So the majority of our non-programmatic expenses are actually programmatic expenses and budgeted into programs. Um, and many of the multi-year donors are perfectly fine with it. Even single-year donors are fine with it, because often what people want is validation. So the Avanti program costs X is fundamentally what people want validation on. So if you can get some donors to fund that, then others will follow. Um, and then we have a small number of, I think, truly unrestricted innovation funders who typically fund research and innovation. So those will be grants specifically written to try a new program, to do a research study, to, right? So it would be about 10% of this completely flexible money. I think we managed to get about 20-25% of our budget allocated in programs for things that most people would call flexible things, like tech, product, uh, M&E, advocacy. And then we get another, I think, 5 or 10% of research funding. So actually half of my budget eventually ends up being money I can use for things other than directly doing the core programming. And I think a lot of the way we've been able to do this is by structuring our budgets well, and by being very careful about how we present program costs and what is core to program and what is
Awesome. Thanks so much. I think very interesting to note that that consistent $500 check is still relevant at your scale and at your journey. And of course, definitely the point about structuring the budget really resonates. Muzammil, I'm going to come to you now. Project Deep is a much younger organization, not necessarily at the moment running direct programs. I know that's a part of what you do, but you've still seen success in fundraising, getting unrestricted funds. So, walk us through how you've done that, what your current strategies are, and what plans are.
Thanks. That was quite an elaborate description, so that's super helpful. We are 3-year old as an organization, uh, 4 crores budget. First year we did nudge incubation, second year we did change engine acceleration, third year we are doing nudge acceleration. Really helps with unrestricted grants. So fellowships, incubation programs are good at the start. similar to $400, $500. We, in terms of crowdfunding, we were able to do so. Some corporate leaders really liked our program, so they were able to employ fundraisers within the organization. So we ended up raising in one campaign 50 lakhs, which was just different employees giving and partners of the organization contributing to it. That was success in 1 year. The HR actually created some reels and made videos and ran that campaign for us of the company, so we didn't have to do much in running the campaign. That year we were in the top 10 list of the Give campaigns that Give hosts every year. Give liked us, so Give put us on their homepage. So my favorite emails in the week is randomly from Give. I will receive that. Hey, you received 10,000 rupees. So that really helps. So one, retail campaigns are usually blitz, or you spend 2-3 weeks doing that campaign in a year, which we do, which really helps. But if you can get on some of these Benevity platform or a Give platform or any of them and crack a collaboration with them early on, your year-round retail, the $400, if you don't have US partnerships, India also works out. Apart from this, unrestricted funding majorly comes from HNI family foundations. They understand so one, we do direct cash transfers. So we give unrestricted funding to the community directly. So most of the funders I was sharing get attracted to us who believe in unrestricted funding. So our overall portfolio is 50% is unrestricted funding right now. For one is this reason. Second is also we are heavily involved in systems change works. We are constantly working with the governments, which again is a good match if you're working with HNIs, if you're working with family foundations. That is the kind of leverage they want to see of the work. The last thing I would want to say is what we have been able to do is, and because of the space that we are in, only in Maharashtra, where we are working right now, the policy that we are working with is a 36,000 crore policy. So whatever work we do as a 4 crore organization has, if we are successful, will have an impact on a 36,000 crore policy. The ROI, or the leverage of any funding that we are able to showcase, is extremely high. So if a funder gives us a 1 crore check, they're like, okay, if we are successful, this is a really good bet that we are able to take. So these are some of the things that has worked out for us in the first 2-3 years.
Thanks, Muzammil. I think framing, especially if you're working with the government, framing things in terms of what finance your money unlocks, I think, can really put things in perspective, and contributions that might seem way too much initially could then seem very, very manageable. Akanksha, I want to come to you now. So we've heard from orgs at both ends of the spectrum in terms. Do you need a mic? Yeah. We've heard from Project Deep, which is 3 years old, and Avanti is 15. Muzammil just spoke about accelerators, and Akshay, of course, has talked about getting money from abroad, which a lot of organizations at early stage can't access. And I think ACT really plays a catalytic role in this sort of post-accelerator stage where there are not that many funders, and you're one of the few funders that really provides unrestricted capital that's beyond 5 lakhs and 10 lakhs and a larger check size. So you've seen tons of organizations. What are some common mistakes that founders make when they come pitch to you and ACT?
Yeah. So I also want to start by saying my journey into the funding world really started because I had spent about 6 years at Teach for India and had started seeing up close and center a lot of the work and the heavy uplifting that goes into fundraising, and after a while you also kind of start developing like, this is so unfair, and so I wanted to kind of correct some of the things I was seeing as an operator from the funding side. But I think in terms of like the main advice is really like be very clear about what kind of funding you need and why. And so even within unrestricted funding, I think there are different use cases. So again, if I go back into my own context as Teach for India, one reason, of course, is you need some money saved for a rainy day. Teach for India had several supporters as individuals on the board um, who had been very willing to come in and give that, and that had helped us build a corpus, which came in quite handy during COVID. So that's one kind of use case for which even a lot of the small retail checks that both of them mentioned come in very, very handy. Um, but I think there's a whole other bucket. And I think another second bucket is, of course, people cost and being able to pay for talent, which I saw on the slide when Shubham was presenting, and also a very valid use case. There, again, I have a mixed opinion. I also feel as you grow the pie, you also grow the 20%. And so sometimes, your ability to capture better talent is also tied with how fast you can grow and scale. And it almost creates a tied incentive to also really buckle down and get your program right. But I think the third bucket, which I started seeing a lot as an operator, were really core strategic areas which could give a real lift to mainstream business as usual, right? So, um, for example, I led recruitment and selection, but we knew that certain tech elements could fundamentally make us do that faster. We knew that investing in social media in a big way could help us capture um, a lot more people, again, grow the program, which again grows the pie, right? So to me, it was this third category, whether it's tech, I'm so sorry, whether it's tech, whether it's innovation, but outside of business as usual, are there strategic areas where unrestricted funding can play a big role? And so at ACT, that really kind of became our central idea. How can we help early stage, especially early stage companies, both not for profits and for profits, social enterprises, who need that unrestricted funding for core strategic areas um, to then innovate and grow fast? So I would say typically the two challenges we see um, when we're sitting in front of great founders is one, not being really clear about what that strategic priority is, where you're going to use that unrestricted money. And two, also not being able to clearly show it in numbers, right? So then we'll ask for budgets. And to us, your budget is really another way to, in numbers, to represent that strategic initiative where you feel unrestricted money can come in. So they go hand in hand, but we spend a lot of time in just making sure that there's a match, right? That you don't need unrestricted money for something else. It needs to really fall into that tech first catalytic category for us as a funder to be able to jump in.
Got it. Yeah, you mentioned numbers, and I think that brings me to another kind of prickly topic that does come up when we talk about unrestricted funding, which is trust, and the flip side of that is accountability. While one of the most surprising insights of this survey for me was that a lot of nonprofits did not say trust was a barrier to accessing unrestricted funding. But if I generally ask people, there will be this assumption or there will be this perception that trust really, really plays a role. And as somebody representing my parents, we definitely do operate on trust in our philanthropy as well. So I wanted to ask both Muzammil and Akshay this, and I'll start with you, Muzammil. How do you build trust with your funders or potential funders so that they are kind of really giving you, capital that you can be flexible with?
So with most of the HNI or family foundation archetype of funders that we have cadences with them. Some prefer once in a year cadence, some prefer monthly cadence. Um, we really plan how to use this time with them ahead in advance. So as a founder, my 50% of my time does go into fundraising. With the existing ones also, I do invest a lot of time, but not only from the perspective of reporting as to what's happening, but both Pankaj and I are young founders. We are doing this for the first time, so we leverage most of these opportunities to learn a lot from these conversations, which in the process also means that you share your vulnerabilities, that these are the challenges that we are facing right now in the organization, and this is not what we are able to solve for. Uh, if you only go from if I only go from a perspective of this is what not, this is something that I can't do, and I'm not able to do, then you're just stating a problem. But if you're trying to learn, and most of our funders do fund other organizations, so they've seen organizational journeys of how, and Avanti has done it before in their third year or fourth year, and they have a lot of insights to share. So that's a relationship that you build over time by trying to learn something from their perspectives and gather more perspectives at the very least, if nothing else, to then shape your decisions better. I think that helps the most, and maintaining those cadences, asking what the preferences are, and really utilizing that time. Uh, in terms of setting successes, we usually do it on WhatsApp messages, that whenever there's a success, we spontaneously share it. That, hey, we did this good today. So this is a smaller milestone for this week or this month, probably. And rather leveraging the cadences for sharing more of our challenges, I think that helps with trust building. The last thing I want to say about that is also, uh, you were mentioning in the morning in the masterclass that for post HNI fundraising, referrals work really well. A lot of trust does get built if you're doing good work. For people will talk about you. There are funders who don't. There are philanthropists who don't fund us but really talk about our work, and we are very thankful to them. So that they talk about our work in multiple circles and multiple settings, and that has helped us mobilize visibility for the organization. They can open multiple doors for you even if they are not funding. So you don't necessarily only engage with people who are funding you, but even if somebody is not funding for a year, 2 year, you continue to engage with them and again try to learn. Or there is a lot more than money that funders can contribute to an organization, and we try to leverage a lot more of that as well.
And Akshay, I mean, Avanti is at a scale where maybe you are not able to send WhatsApps organically to funders. So, what's your approach, and how does it vary for different types of funders?
And I still send WhatsApps to all my funders.
Amazing.
There's not that many, So I think that I think especially for folk who are giving you, I think you should always find time to communicate with funders, because I think those relationships, I think one of the reasons you didn't see trust is because you asked non-profits and not funders. Because I think this is a big problem actually, which is most non-profits that I interact with. I think many non-profit founders feel a certain degree of entitlement of trust, that I am doing this good work, thereby I must be a trustworthy person, and thereby you must trust me. How can you not trust? Right. So I think the first thing to get over is that, which is that it's like anything else, it's an accountability based frame, and you have to demonstrate that either through past work or through impact or through your day to day actions that you are fundamentally a trustworthy person. Um, the second is, I think it's also important to recognize that it's an investment. Right, this is not, people are not giving money away because they want to feel good about themselves, which is the other common myth. People are giving money away because they want to be part of something meaningful. And meaning can be depth, meaning can be scale, meaning can be national policy. Meaning will be different things for different people. But if you are not able to articulate the meaning in your work and engage people deeply on that journey towards long term meaning, they will not invest in you. And in fact, the individual money is the hardest to keep, right? Which I think the CSR money, to some degree, because it is still like a corporate revenue of some form, is somewhat easier to maintain as long as you do your compliances, you produce your impact. But I think if you don't invest in relationships, you will not get trust. Um, I think the other is, to start with grants. So I think many of our, just to give you a sense of our largest unrestricted money in the early years, I think the first large value unrestricted check we got was 5 lakh rupees, right? And that was, I think, in year 2 or year 3. I think year 5, we started getting 1 crore rupee large unrestricted checks. But the individual checks that we got from the same people in the early days were restricted. But when you're a 6-person organization, what is unrestricted? Like, it is basically your salaries. So I think, to what Akanksha was saying, I think being very clear about what you need the money for, and what you may need the money for is my salary. Like right now, I have no people, I have no program, I have no budget, just fund my salary. I think it's much easier for someone to fund your salary if you say it is your salary, as opposed to fund someone who has nothing on the ground meaningful, asking for just give me unrestricted money, and I'm upset that you didn't give me. Right? So I think a lot of this is earned trust, which is, are you being honest? Are you telling me when things don't work? Are you telling me when you wasted my money or you made a mistake? And thereby, are you a trustworthy partner in this? Because I can't do the work myself, I'm doing it through you. right? And I think that is true actually even of institutional donors. I think fundamentally that's what builds trust. It's being very, very honest.
I think just on the concept of earned trust, Akanksha, you did mention that you joined ACT as you wanted to be a funder because you thought that it's not fair what a lot of nonprofits have to go through. So while I definitely, as a funder, also I resonate that earning trust is really important and sort of having a long-term engagement. Of course, there are many situations where non-profits have to jump through so many hoops to earn that trust, and it does feel very unfair. But you still, as a funder, have to hold the non-profits accountable or design some sort of accountability measure. So what does ACT do to keep like what accountability systems do you have at ACT, which also I think keep that founder first principle alive?
Okay, so first I'll share what we do to kind of extend trust from our end, and of course, like all things,
It's a two-way
everything
street,
is
yes.
a two-way street. But from our end, again, it's unrestricted capital. It is all domestic capital, which is fairly valuable in today's day and age. Typically, again, it's meant for early stage tech first NGOs. And one big thing that we do to extend trust from our end is we try not to put people through the typical um, CSR hoops, if I can call them that, right? So we won't wait till the end of the year where you're sending us reports and then release the money. Typically, actually, we try to release, if we've decided to take a bet on you, then we trust you. And that's our way of saying, here's like as much capital upfront as possible. Worst case, we'll do like 2 tranches. So we'll still try to give typically more than half the money upfront so you can go about your business. And then we'll kind of release tranches. Unfortunately, we're also a Section 8 company, so a lot of the rules that not-for-profits are governed by, we are as well. So those are some of the things that we do from our end. For us, I mean, I don't want to call it accountability, but very simplistically, the guiding principle is, are you clear about what you're doing, and are you going to do what you said you're going to do, right? So again, because these are early stage organizations, often they don't have any programs running, right? So there is no question of here's how many kids are impacted or learners or healthcare outcomes. Very venture style, typically the cycle for us is product, from product to distribution or model, then growth, and then scale. So in the first stage, you've probably said, okay, I'm going to use this unrestricted money to develop a product. At the time of the grant, how clear are you? If you're really clear about the product you're going to build, you're going to be very clear about the budget items, right? So again, it goes hand in hand, clarity and the numbers that you're giving us. It might take 6 months, it might take 18 months. So again, we're not very restrictive about timing either. It's really about the outcomes. In the time frame, did you reach that next stage? Was the product developed? Are you now ready for your go-to market? In which case, are you ready to take this to schools or governments? So in the next grant, if everything goes as per plan, then the next grant will typically be a distribution grant where you're doing pilots. That's where you start getting some of the outcomes. We start getting the sniff test on whether or not this is working for the impact. And then there'll be growth outcomes and scale outcomes, right? So for us, it's a lot less about where did you spend the money, number of people impacted. It's a lot more about what was the stage, what are the right outcomes for that stage that we have agreed on together. And if you meet those, then let's talk about the next grant, and we kind of take it from there. We've written grants as little as 15 lakhs, but typically our starting is, those are very small grants. Typically, we like to start with $100,000, which is about 80 to 90 lakhs. And in best cases, again, where people have been clear about their vision and they've been able to achieve it and they've done what they said they would, we've stayed with them for 3 to 4 years and written up to, 8 to 9 crores. Yeah.
Awesome. I saw many people taking notes. You might get a lot of requests now, Akanksha, and I'm also being given a lot of looks from the timekeeper. So I will close this panel. Thank you, Muzammil, Akshay, Akanksha, for all your insights. Do we have any time for questions? Oh, nobody said no, so I'm gonna take the questions. Yes. Yeah.
I have to be careful. My funder is sitting on stage, so. um, but I think one of the questions I have is when you talk about unicorns and when we talk about it in the for-profit world, there's a lot of space to fail actually and to pivot. So when you build unicorns in the for-profit world, you get like 2 crore straight up, right? To play around, burn, and make all the mistakes. A non-profit on day one comes with a set model and you get 25 lakhs to play. So you barely get money to build, forget like actually run. And that's generally the case, right? When I'm listening to what, I mean, Akshay, 12 years ago, if I've heard, I mean, when you started 5 lakh checks are, it's barely anything to cover your salary. I'm sure you were picking consulting gigs on the side. So my question to you guys would be when we talk about this whole unrestricted funding game, who in this philanthropic world is even working on unrestricted funding? Nobody. It's like small checks. You technically, if you get these small checks, you can barely build a model, forget fail. And if you don't fail, then how do you actually build these unicorns, right? Because I think that's we're talking this game, but I'm not sure if this is even possible.
Sorry, your question is?
My question is fundamentally, if you're talking about unrestricted funding, and if you are, how much is the quantum one should be thinking when an organization starts, and should that organization actually have the space to fail? Because right now, nonprofits don't have any space to fail. So it's a very, I mean, you can't talk about unicorns if you don't have the space to fail and pivot actually. And most nonprofits actually pivot by changing their entire model and have a massive mission drift wherever they get funding. So
I can take that. I think we failed a lot, so I don't think that's true. And I think maybe the maybe just the way to frame it, right, is in the commercial world in venture capital. I think the first seed stage checks have only gone up over time, right? So I think part of it is that people have made money of taking those big bets and are thereby now willing to take bigger bets. I think we are stuck. You're right, in a certain kind of a loop where um, I don't think we've seen, and historically in this space, because it's been very community action based, I don't think we've seen enough examples of saying if I, give an unrestricted check to this one person of like X amount of money, it, it's a worthwhile strategy. I think that's a bit of a strategy demonstration issue. That said, even though, at least for us, right, in the early days, even though it was 5555 lakh, I think my first year budget, I was able to, not first, but the second year onwards, we were able to raise about a crore, 2 crore a year of fairly flexible capital from individuals who didn't care what we did. I mean, who wanted us to work in this direction, but they were okay with us making mistakes. And we have done all kinds of things over time, right? Like, so we started off running centers which were for fee. Then we started working with governments on math remediation. Then we worked on, online models, offline models, blended models. So I think over time we've had a lot of opportunities to try different things along the way. But all this saying that I think we would be top 5% lucky people in this game. I think for those in the room, the really flexible money that is early and available in the way that you were describing is today, I think, nudge. I think to a degree, ACT Vakanksha likes you. Echoing Green out of the US, which can also funds Indian orgs if you don't have FCRA. Ashoka is a founder salary, about 8 lakh rupees for 3 years, right? So there is, if you add all this up, you can, if you get into the right things, get your 1-2 crores of very, very flexible money. And I do think the one thing I did want to add is it's really important to develop your boards. So if you don't have someone on your board who is funding at least your salary, you're doing the non-profit wrong. Don't start. Like, if you cannot convince somebody to pay your whatever 6-8 lakh rupees in the earlier days, or maybe 10 lakhs you need to live, right? You're just not going to be able to build a non-profit if you can't find that one person at least in like a year of trying, right? So that's just objectively true. If you can't find that, then don't do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add. Hi, Binti. I mean, I feel your frustration, but it's also a chicken and egg problem, right? My biggest issue right now is not writing checks to founders, right? It is actually increasing the number of philanthropists for ACT from 7 to 70, right? And the reason it's chicken and egg is because those 7 you're already preaching to the choir. They see the value in this. They've done, venture capital, they've seen the value of trusting founders and allowing them to build, fail fast, pivot, fail again, build great things. But the next 70 are saying, but what is the guarantee? I need to see some proof points. And those founders don't yet. So we're caught in this vicious cycle. But I think the only way is for everyone to keep at it. And it's going to take time. I think if you, to Akshay's point, if you draw parallels from how long it took for more capital to come in, more folks to get funded, I think we're looking at a good another 10 years at least. But
I think
we've all
my
got to
takeaway is
at it.
keep at it.
Yeah.
I would love to take more questions. I see hands, but I am being glared at by the Change Engine team. So apologies, will not be taking any more questions. Thank you to the panelists. And I'm going to hand it over to the Change Engine team to close or carry on to the next session.